There is a moment, somewhere in every match Belgium plays, when a single defender realizes he is completely alone. It usually happens out on the left touchline. The ball travels wide, fast, skipping across the turf, and suddenly there is a young man in red standing in front of him with the ball glued to his feet. No teammate close enough to help. No cover behind. Just the two of them, isolated in a pocket of grass, and a problem with no good answer. Because the man with the ball is Jeremy Doku. And Jeremy Doku is, by the admission of some of the smartest coaches in world football, essentially unfollowable. When the United States faced Belgium in a friendly earlier this year, Mauricio Pochettino, a manager who has spent his entire career studying how to stop dangerous wingers, looked at this problem and arrived at a decision that told you everything. He did not double up on Doku. He did not assign a fullback and a holding midfielder to swarm him. Instead, he asked Timothy Weah, an attacking player, a forward, to track him. The logic was quietly devastating. If you cannot reliably stop this man with conventional defending, then you might as well try something else entirely. Belgium won that game 5-2. And here is the thing you have to understand. The terrifying part is not Doku on his own. Plenty of teams have a brilliant dribbler. The terrifying part is what Belgium have built around him, because the whole system is engineered to force opposing defenders into a choice that cannot be won. Leave Doku in a one-on-one, and he will eventually destroy you. Send a second man to help, and you have just torn a hole somewhere else on the pitch for the greatest passer of his generation to exploit. It is a trap. A beautifully simple, almost cruel trap. And the man who designed it is a 62-year-old Frenchman that half of Belgium did not even want. In this video, we are going to break down the tactic that has turned Belgium from a national embarrassment into one of the most feared attacking teams at the 2026 World Cup. We will trace how a golden generation that won nothing fell completely apart in Qatar. We will meet the unlikely coach who rebuilt them in 18 months. And then, right at the end, we will confront the one fatal flaw in all of it. The single weakness that an unfancied team has already exposed in this very tournament. Because for all its menace, this terrifying tactic comes with a catch that could still send Belgium home in disgrace. But to understand how frightening this Belgium side can be, you first have to understand how far they fell. Rewind to the winter of 2022. Qatar. Belgium arrived at that World Cup ranked second in the entire world. They had Kevin De Bruyne at the peak of his powers, widely considered the best midfielder on the planet. They had Romelu Lukaku, a goal-scoring machine. They had Thibaut Courtois, fresh off a Champions League final where he had single-handedly broken Liverpool's heart. This was the golden generation, the most talented group of players Belgium had ever produced. A tiny nation of 11 million people somehow assembling a squad that could go toe-to-toe with anyone. And they were running out of time. Everyone knew it. These players were in their 30s now. Qatar was supposed to be the last great chance to finally win something, to turn all that talent into a trophy. Instead, it was a humiliation. Belgium did not win a single knockout match. They did not even reach the knockout stage. They were eliminated in the group, undone by their own age and their own bitterness. Stories leaked out of a fractured dressing room. Senior players arguing. A generation that had grown tired of each other. Eden Hazard, once the jewel of the whole project, retired from international football almost immediately afterward. The dream was over, and it had delivered nothing. What followed was 2.5 years of slow decline. A new coach, Domenico Tedesco, was brought in to manage the transition. At first, it looked promising, but then came another disappointment, a limp exit from the European Championship in the round of 16. And then, the relationship started to crack. Courtois, one of the best goalkeepers in the world, publicly declared he would not play for the national team while Tedesco remained in charge. De Bruyne asked for time away, citing exhaustion and a brutal schedule, and openly criticized both his teammates and his manager after a defeat. The whole thing was rotting from the inside, By early 2025, Belgium were a team in name only. A collection of famous individuals who could barely stand to be in the same room. Tedesco was sacked, and the federation went looking for someone, anyone who could clean up the mess. They found Rudi Garcia, and almost nobody was excited about it. On paper, the appointment was strange. Garcia was a journeyman, a coach with over 900 matches of club experience across 4 countries, at Lille, Roma, Marseille, Lyon, and Napoli. But with one glaring gap on his resume. He had never managed a national team, never coached at a single major international tournament. His most recent job, a brief and unhappy spell at Napoli, had ended in failure. He was 61 years old, French, taking over a proud Belgian side, and he was being handed a poisoned chalice. A dressing room full of aging stars and wounded egos, with the impossible task of getting them to the World Cup and making them matter again. But buried in that long career were the fingerprints of someone who knew how to do exactly this kind of job. Years earlier, Garcia had taken Lille, an unfashionable French club with a fraction of the resources of the giants around them, and turned them into champions, winning a domestic league and cup double in 2011 that almost nobody saw coming. He had taken Marseille to a continental final. He had managed enormous personalities at Roma and survived the suffocating pressure of Italian football. If there was one thing Garcia had proven across 2 decades, it was that he could walk into a room full of talented players who did not quite believe in themselves and convince them they were better than they thought. That was not a glamorous skill. It did not make headlines, but it was precisely the skill Belgium needed, even if hardly anyone recognized it at the time. The reaction was lukewarm at best. This felt like a safe, uninspiring choice, a retirement project, not the bold new direction a broken team needed. And then Garcia got to work, and quietly, without much noise at all, he started fixing everything. He did the unglamorous thing first. He repaired the relationships. He went to the senior players, the ones who had been at war with the previous regime, and he gave them something they had not felt in years: respect, freedom, a sense that they were trusted. Courtois came back. De Bruyne came back. The poison started to drain out of the group. In his first 10 matches in charge, Garcia lost only once. He guided Belgium through a tricky promotion playoff against Ukraine, and then he took them through an entire World Cup qualifying campaign without a single defeat, topping their group, finishing the job with a 7-0 demolition of Liechtenstein. But fixing the mood was only half of it. Because while he was healing the dressing room, Garcia was also building something on the training pitch. A system, a specific, repeatable, and genuinely frightening way of attacking. And, at the very center of it, he placed the one player who could make the whole thing work. He placed his fuse. Garcia has a phrase for what Jeremy Doku does. He says Doku is the player who lights the fuse. And once you understand what he means, you start to see the entire Belgian attack differently. Doku is 23 years old, a Manchester City winger, and he possesses a quality that is genuinely rare even at the very highest level of the game. Pure, explosive acceleration combined with a low center of gravity and feet that move faster than a defender's brain can process. He does not glide past people. He detonates past them. One touch, a shift of the hips, and he is gone, leaving a fullback grasping at empty air. Pep Guardiola, his manager at City, reportedly gives him almost no instructions when he has the ball. He simply lets him go and create chaos, because trying to choreograph that kind of instinct only slows it down. Garcia understood the same thing. He built his Belgium not to control Doku, but to unleash him. The instruction is simple. Get the ball to Jeremy in space, out wide, isolated against a single defender, and let nature take its course. Because there is no defender in this tournament who can consistently win that duel. In the friendly against the United States, Doku had more touches than any other Belgian player, attempted the most dribbles, created chances at a rate matched only by De Bruyne, and tormented the American defense for the entire time he was on the pitch. The opposition coach concluded the only sane response was to throw an extra attacker at him. And this is where the genius of it begins to reveal itself. Because Garcia does not just want Doku to beat his man, although he is delighted when that happens. What Garcia really wants is for the opposition to be so frightened of Doku that they change their entire shape to deal with him. When Garcia was asked whether teams might double up on Doku at the World Cup, his answer was almost gleeful. He said he hoped they would. Because the moment a second defender slides across to help, a gap opens up somewhere else. And Belgium have built their whole attack around punishing that gap. Doku does not have to score. He does not even have to beat his man. He just has to be so dangerous that he warps the defense around him, dragging bodies toward the touchline, stretching the structure until it tears. That is the fuse. Now here is the explosion. Because while every defensive eye is locked onto the chaos out wide, there is a man standing in the middle of the pitch with the most dangerous right foot international football has seen in a decade. Kevin De Bruyne, the conductor, the man who has spent his entire career punishing defenses for the exact mistake that Doku forces them to make. This is the dilemma at the heart of the terrifying tactic, and it is worth saying slowly because of how clean it is. If you defend Doku honestly, one-on-one, he beats you, and crosses or cuts inside and creates a chance. If you defend Doku safely, sending help, you leave space in the center, and De Bruyne slides a pass through it that ends with the ball in the back of your net. There is no third option. There is no setting where both threats are covered, because covering one is precisely what exposes the other. The opposition is forced to pick which way they would prefer to die. And lurking on the end of all of it is Romelu Lukaku, Belgium's all-time leading goal scorer, with 89 goals to his name. A target man built like a heavyweight boxer who only needs half a yard and one clean look at goal. The wide chaos and the central genius exist to manufacture exactly that half yard. Doku stretches you. De Bruyne picks the lock, Lukaku finishes. It is a production line of danger, and every part of it feeds the next. Picture how it unfolds in real time. The ball goes out to Doku. The fullback backs off, terrified of the acceleration, and a midfielder drifts across to make it 2 against 1. For half a second, it looks like good defending. But that midfielder has just vacated the exact patch of grass where De Bruyne loves to receive. And Doku, instead of taking on his man, simply rolls the ball back into that space. Now De Bruyne has the ball, his head up, with a clear lane toward the penalty area, and Lukaku peeling off his marker. By the time the defense recognizes what has happened, the pass is already gone and the striker is already running onto it. 3 touches, 3 players, 1 goal. And the maddening part for the opposition is that they did nothing obviously wrong. They reacted to the danger in front of them, which is exactly what Belgium wanted them to do. Garcia layered one more frightening element on top. His Belgium do not sit back and wait for the ball to come to them. They go and hunt it, and they hunt it in a clever, lopsided way. The press is deliberately asymmetric. The striker curves his run to cut the pitch in half, herding the opposition toward one touchline. The far side winger steps up to squeeze the space, while the near side winger hangs back just enough to invite the pass forward. The pass that looks safe but is really a trap. The moment that pass is played, Belgium swarm the area and strangle the opponent against their own sideline, with nowhere to escape. When the move is at its most extreme, the wide players tuck in and the shape briefly becomes a back 5, a wall of bodies waiting to pounce. It is pressing as ambush, and in one match alone it allowed Belgium to win the ball back 40 times. The point is not just to defend. The point is to recover possession high up the pitch, close to the opposition goal, where the distance between winning the ball and scoring is shortest, and where Doku and De Bruyne are at their most lethal. When it clicks, it does not just create chances, it creates them in waves. And in qualifying, it absolutely clicked. Belgium scored 29 goals in 8 matches. an average of more than 3.5 goals every single game. They were statistically one of the most lethal attacking units in all of Europe. De Bruyne led the way with 6 goals. Doku added 5 and lit the fuse for many more. For a brief, intoxicating stretch, it looked like Belgium had not just recovered. It looked like they had become genuinely, frighteningly good, like a team that might finally turn all that talent into something real. This is the last World Cup this golden generation will ever play. It looked unstoppable. And then the actual tournament started, and Belgium discovered the catch. Here is the uncomfortable truth that lives underneath all that attacking menace. This Belgium team cannot defend. Not properly, not reliably. The same freedom that makes them so dangerous going forward leaves them dangerously exposed going the other way. The defense is lightweight, aging in some places and inexperienced in others, and it has been bleeding chances all year. During qualifying against Wales of all teams, Belgium conceded 5 goals across just 2 matches. 5. Against a side they were supposed to brush aside. The attacking numbers hit a backline that could be cut open by anyone with the pace and the nerve to try. For most of qualifying, it did not matter, because Belgium simply outscored everyone. When you are putting 3 or 4 past teams, nobody pays much attention to the ones you let in. But a World Cup is not qualifying. A World Cup is full of teams who will not try to outscore Belgium at all. Teams who will do something far more inconvenient. They will refuse to come out and play. And that is the deeper problem with the terrifying tactic. It is a weapon designed to punish space. Doku needs room to accelerate into. De Bruyne needs gaps to pass through. The lopsided press needs an opponent willing to build from the back and get caught. But what happens when the other team simply does not give you any of that? What happens when they sit 11 men behind the ball, pack the penalty area, deny Doku his runway, clog the channels De Bruyne wants to thread, and dare Belgium to break them down through a wall of bodies? We did not have to wait long to find out. Because that is exactly what Egypt did in Belgium's opening match of this World Cup. In Seattle, in their very first game of the tournament against a side ranked far below them, Belgium ran straight into a disciplined, organized, fiercely committed defensive block, and the terrifying tactics sputtered. Egypt did not panic. They sat deep, stayed compact, cut off Doku's inside runs, and refused him the isolated one-on-ones he feeds on. The most explosive winger in the competition was reduced to a single shot that missed the target, and one wayward cross, losing most of his individual duels against an Egyptian defense that had clearly studied him and was not afraid of him. The fuse never lit, and when the fuse never lights, there is no explosion. Worse, Egypt struck first. A midfielder named Imam Ashur, set up by the threat of Mohamed Salah, drove a low shot past Courtois to give the Pharaohs a lead they had no business expecting, and for a long stretch it looked like one of the great World Cup upsets was unfolding. Belgium pushed. De Bruyne rattled the woodwork. A Tielemans volley flashed wide. They piled up 15 shots. But against a deep block, shots are cheap and clear, chances are gold, and Belgium could not find enough gold. In the end, they were rescued by the bluntest tool in the box. Garcia sent on Lukaku, and within 22 seconds of his arrival, the big striker's mere presence in the box caused so much panic that an Egyptian defender turned the ball into his own net. 1-1. A point salvaged, a defeat avoided. But make no mistake about what that match revealed. The grand, elegant, terrifying tactic had been smothered by a team that simply refused to be terrified, and Belgium needed an own goal to escape with a draw. That is the catch. That is the flaw that no amount of attacking brilliance has yet solved. The teams Belgium will have to beat to win this World Cup, the ones in the latter rounds, are precisely the teams capable of defending like that, and worse. Organized, compact, patient. Happy to absorb pressure and strike on the counter, where Belgium's fragile defense is at its most vulnerable. The terrifying tactic terrifies teams who come out to play. The question that will define Belgium's entire tournament is whether it can also break down the teams who do not. And the clock is ticking in more ways than one. Because this is, unmistakably, the last dance. Kevin De Bruyne will turn 35 this summer. He spent part of this season recovering from surgery, returning to fitness only in the spring, leaving him precious little time to rediscover his sharpest form. Lukaku endured an injury-hit campaign of his own. Courtois, Meunier, Witsel, the survivors of the golden generation, are all playing in what is certainly their final World Cup. The window that cracked open in Qatar and seemed to slam shut forever has been pried back open one last time by Rudy Garcia. There will not be another. Whatever this group is going to achieve, it has to achieve it now, in North America, in the next few weeks. Think about what is actually at stake for these men. For more than a decade, they carried the weight of a nation's expectations. Hailed as the most gifted generation Belgium had ever produced, and for more than a decade they came up short. A semi-final here, a quarter-final there. Always close. Never enough. They have been called chokers and underachievers, a team that flattered to deceive, a cautionary tale about talent without trophies. Every one of them knows that this tournament is the final entry in that story. Win, and the years of heartbreak are reframed forever as the long road to a triumphant ending, the vindication of a generation that finally got it right when it mattered most. Lose, and the verdict is sealed. The greatest collection of Belgian footballers in history, remembered for everything they did not win. There is no middle ground left. This is redemption or it is regret, and there is nothing in between. And even that is complicated by the small, human details that tournaments always throw up. Doku, the fuse that lights the entire system, may have to leave the squad at some point for the birth of his first child. A possibility that hangs over Belgium's deeper run like a question mark nobody can answer yet. Garcia has already made his share of ruthless calls, leaving out one of qualifying's brightest young attackers in a selection that split opinion across the country. Every decision now carries the weight of finality. Next comes Iran. And Iran, ominously, are built to defend exactly the way Egypt did. Deep, disciplined, hard to break, perfectly happy to turn the game into a siege. It is the same test all over again, and Belgium have not yet proven they have passed it. The path through Group G that looked so gentle on paper has suddenly become a referendum on whether the whole project actually works when it matters. So is this the terrifying tactic that wins Belgium the 2026 World Cup? And one glaring weakness that could end it at any moment. The mechanism is real. The dilemma it forces on defenders is genuine and, when the conditions are right, close to unsolvable. On a night when Doku finds his space and De Bruyne finds his range, and Lukaku finds his finishing, Belgium can dismantle anyone on earth, and the rest of the tournament should be afraid of exactly that. But football is not played on paper, and a trap is only terrifying if your opponent steps into it. Egypt did not. Iran may not. And somewhere in the knockout rounds, if Belgium get there, everyone knows they can attack. The question is whether a beautiful, brittle, brilliant team can finally do the one thing this golden generation has never managed to do when it counted the most. Hold their nerve, hold their shape, and win. We are about to find out. After more than a decade of waiting, of heartbreak, of talent wasted and promises broken, the most gifted group of players Belgium has ever produced has one final shot at redemption, armed with the most dangerous idea their country has ever taken to a World Cup. It might just be enough to make history. Or it might be exposed, one more time, on the biggest stage of all. Either way, it is going to be unforgettable. And we will be here for every single moment of it. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think Belgium's terrifying tactic is enough to go all the way? Or will the low block bring them down again? Like and subscribe. Until next time.